How you doing? Hello, everybody. First off, I broke my mic stand while I was streaming yesterday, so that's been fun. It has not been fun, but yeah, we do have a new video for you guys. We're gonna be first impressions on Nico Minoru. Sorry, it's definitely an interesting card. Lots of different abilities. We're gonna go through all the spells and everything. Have some decks as well, so it should be a good one. Let's get started. All right, we can get started here. So Nico Minoru, yeah. So it's a 1 energy 2 power card. On reveal, after you play your next card, cast a spell. The spell changes each turn. So you do have to be aware of what the spells are, and you do have to be aware of like the synergies and that. But it has a lot of pretty good synergies. This card kind of surprised me. People were definitely talking about combining it with Thanos, with destroy cards, good card builds, bounce, that kind of thing. And it's definitely been playable in that. I wouldn't necessarily say it makes it better, but it does make it a lot more fun. I think this has been one of the funner cards released. Kind of reminds me of Legion in terms of how fun it is, but there's a lot of little tricks, I guess, and little like thoughts that go along with it. I would say without really talk about this card, you have to talk about the 7 spells, right? Like I think if you don't know what the 7 spells are, it doesn't really matter how I feel about the card. So we're going to talk about the spells itself right now. So here we have a list of all the spells here. So we're going to go through them one by one, kind of talk about how good I think that it is, and just general thoughts on the design and everything like that. So first one we have, after you play your next card, it becomes a demon. This one is pretty good. It turns your card into a demon. So you have to be playing this with a pretty low cost card, I would say. And I believe you do get your on reveals and stuff like that going. Ongoing, no, but you will get like your draw or something. So it does have that synergy, and you turn your next card into a 1/6, right? So that's pretty powerful in a lot of cases where, you know, if you're playing like a Thanos stone, right? A lot of times that's a 1/1. You can turn that into a 1/6. That's a +5 power base. So this has the potential of being very, very strong. Same thing, like let's say you turn the hood, right? You get two demons, one in your board, one in your hand. Like that's pretty effective. Obviously, it can be killed by Killmonger, so that is something to be aware of. So it's not, I mean, but usually the card you're transforming is a 1-drop anyways. But still, that is something, that's 6 power you don't get. So there is still that caveat of like, oh, you open yourself up to this huge Killmonger play, but generally still a decent option for the spells, especially if your opponent isn't running a deck that has Killmonger. So still pretty powerful. Second one, after you play your next card, you destroy it, and you draw 2 cards. I would say this one is absolutely busted. This one is not fair, not balanced, and if they were going to change any spell, it would be this one. Like, drawing 2 cards is such an unfair ability to have on anything, honestly, on any ability. Like I don't care what card you have. Like if it's a location, that's fine and it hits both players, but for this one, drawing 2 cards is just very, very oppressive when you get it. And a lot of players will wait, at least the players I see, they will wait until it hits this, and they'll just have a deck that can afford to wait, right? And being able to draw 2 cards is just very, very strong. If you get this early, if you get this on your curve, really, really powerful advantage, because it fixes your consistency. It's really hard to deal when you know they have every card in their deck. So this one is the reason you play Nico, I would say. Like this has a lot of effects, and being able to destroy in some decks is not bad. Like the destroy decks, right, that destroy themselves, right, those do really well, and the Phoenix Force decks also that can destroy it. If you can get it in the right curve, it's a really oppressive, because you know you're getting the rest of your deck as well. So this is just the best spell in my opinion, and honestly, I don't think it should be draw 2. Probably draw 1 would be fine, but it is currently the case, and if you're going to play Nico, this is, in my opinion, the reason why. So pretty good. Next spell we have is, after you play your next card, move it 1 location to the right. I would say this is the weakest one. It doesn't mean it's bad, but it's definitely more situational. And when you're looking at the rest of the spells, you always feels like you want to wait and wait for the spell to change to the next turn before you play the Nico. So definitely this one feels the most situational, but there are some cases, especially in some lockdown locations, where it's harder to play in that right location or something like that, where you can definitely find some advantage there. So it's not useless, but it's definitely the most situational, of course, out of the seven. So it is something to be aware of. Next one, after you play your next card, give it +2 power. This one's pretty good. It turns your 1/2 into a 1/4. And there are some synergies giving some cards power, right? There are just some cards that really like having power, and giving them +2 is not negligible. So I think this one has the potential. I don't think people are really building Nico decks right now to abuse this, but I do think in the future this could be a very powerful hit. Right now people aren't playing it that way, but decent option. Next one we have, after you play your next card, replace that card's location. This turns into like Scarlet Witch, turns into like the stone that replaces as well, Reality Stone. So this one's pretty okay. I would say like a lot of decks don't really need this ability, or it doesn't matter that much. So I would say like this one isn't that relevant, and especially if you're playing like Thanos already, you already have this ability, so it's not that important. Sometimes it can also mess you up, right? Like obviously, so you do have to be careful, but usually it's okay. I don't really see a lot of people using Nico for this ability. Like this one doesn't pop up that much in the game, so just seems like people don't really want to utilize Nico for this ability, but there are definitely some moments where it makes sense. It's just like not something people are really focused on. Next we have, after you play your next card, add a copy of it to your hand. I would say this one, in my opinion, is the second best spell if you're paying attention, or if you're utilizing her ability to use this well. There's definitely a lot of cards that, so the powerful thing about this is it will retain the enchantment. So if you play something that gains stats like a Carnage, like a Venom, I don't know, like a Dakin, I don't know, something like that, you will get the upgraded version of the card. So you can definitely do some really crazy things, especially with Venom. I think Venom is like the easiest thing if you're playing a Destroy deck, to just get huge stats where you're getting like 12 power Venom and then you can play it again. So definitely it seems like a very, very useful thing to do with Nico. And the nice thing is, if we have like two spells is not bad. 3 spells is usually where you want to have like, oh, these 3 spells are very good in my deck, right? So Destroy decks like have that type of ability. And then the last one we have is, after you play your next card, you double this card's power. This one is also very good if you're playing very synergistically. So the one that really jumps out to me is Hulk Blaster. So if you play Hulk Blaster on the Nico with this on, it will combine the Nico, then double that Nico's power. So you get like 14 power with that on turn 3. So that could be a very, very useful swing as well. So I do think just doubling Nico's power on Essence is not that great, right? You turn it from a 1/2 to a 1/4, which isn't bad, +2 power, but you can definitely do some crazy things with it to make it a lot better. And especially if you're like playing Bast or something, right? Like doubling it turns it to a 1/6. So there's definitely some upside to this kind of playstyle. So think there's a lot of good spells for Nico. Obviously there are some that are not as good, but I think there's enough good spells that it makes sense to at least consider playing the card. So those are my thoughts on the spells. In essence, which ones I think are good or bad. But overall, when it comes to should you buy this card, I actually have like a somewhat complicated opinion of this card. I think you can recommend this card, but I don't think it's a core card. So I don't think it's a card you have to get or will feel that bad not getting. I think a lot of the decks you play with this could still work very well without the Nico. It's not a card yet that's creating new strategies. Now, I think new strategies are hard to create, especially day one, that work well and fight the meta in a good way. So I think it's a card that can get better with time and is definitely better than I thought. So I was thinking maybe it'd be a little bit limiting in that it wouldn't always feel good, and there will be some moments where it's just awkward to play in to get the ability that you want. But I just think like a lot of the decks that are playing this just generally have very cheap cards. So because they have very cheap cards, you can play this flexibly, right? And being able to play it flexibly is something you really need to make this feel good. If you can't play this card in a flexible manner, then it's not really going to be as useful as it potentially could be. But after seeing it in play, right, I think a lot of the decks that are utilizing this played flexibly, and it makes it feel playable, makes it feel fun. And in terms of it, I think this card is as close to Legion potential in terms of fun. I definitely think a lot of the people I've been playing against and stuff like that are enjoying playing with Nico, are enjoying using the spells, are enjoying like playtesting, finding the combos. So I think this card is a really fun card to play, and I think that matters for some players. Like if you're not in like enjoying like your particular deck, just adding a card like Nico can definitely do that for you. So I think that's pretty cool. It's flexible in a lot of builds. I thought it might be limiting, but I've definitely seen a wide variety of Nico players. Obviously, it might be because of its day one nature, and people would just want to playtest the card day one. But in terms of results, it hasn't been horrible results. I wouldn't necessarily say it's been outstanding in terms of how good it's been. It's been acceptable, right? But I don't think every card has to be outstanding. And a card like this being outstanding, I think wouldn't necessarily be a good thing. You don't want the best cards to be this, Yu-Gi-Oh text, which this card is, right? Like High Evolutionary is like kind of Yu-Gi-Oh text-esque, but in a different way, right? But I don't think it necessarily needs to be like, oh my god, repressive, but it is playable, right? And it is fun. There are definitely some very powerful spells, and even though it doesn't yet create new synergies, it could in the future. So I can recommend this card. But I wouldn't say if you're missing this card, it matters that much. So even though I'm recommending it, you can definitely skip it. If you don't have the resources, skip it. If you don't like the deck playstyle, skip it. If you don't like the card, skip it. Right? It's just better than I thought after seeing it in play. So that's my overall thoughts on the card. So, I don't want anyone saying, hey, Colin said it was OP. I did not say that. Colin said it was weak. I don't think it's weak, but it's not like core. That's all. All right. So first thing I do want to talk about a little bit is something that I saw while streaming. There was a new bundle, and I want to talk about this bundle. Obviously, I do my bundle reviews every month, but this one is notable enough that I wanted to put it here in this next video just to kind of say, hey, be aware of this. So look at this Sugar Spice Everything Nice bundle, 7,500 gold. You're getting 2 variants. You're getting 6,000 collector's tokens and 7,000 credits, right? So I've done the math. This is the best bundle for gold we've ever gotten, period. Like by a factor of like 25. It's like 125% value essentially, based on like my metrics. So I usually compare it to the best bundle we ever have, and that's the value. This is way better than that by quite a few. So I can show you the old bundle, like the old best bundle, which was Cyber Holiday, I believe. So this one, same price point, but you got 3,000 collector's tokens and 9,500 credits, right? So with this new bundle, you're getting an extra 3,000 tokens. You're only losing 2,500 credits, right? And credits are not the same value as tokens. If I give you 6,000 credits and I give you 6,000 tokens, right? Like you're way happier with the tokens. So getting an extra 3,000 tokens, just losing 2,500 credits. If this does not change in any way, if this is the actual deal, because we've seen some good bundles actually be changed afterwards. After I talk about them, like, oh wow, this bundle was super good, and then it changes, right? So if this bundle does not change, this is the best bundle we've ever gotten. So Keep your eyes out for that, right? We have Forged by Night and the Dracula bundle; those are coming out, but this blows it out the water. So if you can save your 7,500 gold, save it for this one. So I just wanted to mention that before we continue. So here we have the Nico, right? After you play a single card, cast a spell. Let's talk about the Spotlight. So I actually changed the Spotlight tier, the third one, the B tier, or well, the one with Phoenix Force Nico. First of all, I think Phoenix Force and Nico can play together. So if you want to play that deck, that is something that's viable. But I think Nico is good enough that I'm gonna raise it from a B to a C, like from the C to a B tier for the third Spotlight. This is the first time I've changed the Spotlight because I really have been on point with initial impressions. But I would say like Nico ended up being better than I thought, so I'm going to raise up that Nico tier. I'm still gonna leave like Nico itself as a C because it's still expensive. So I'm not gonna say you should use your 4 Spotlights just for a single Nico. You can if you want to, especially if you want the variant, right? Because I do think the Nico variant and the Kitty Pride variant is pretty cool. So there's that drive, but in terms of like spending 4 Spotlights just for the Nico, I'm not really sold on that. So still think the overall impression of the Spotlight was fine, but I just wanted to mention I changed it to change the third one from C to B. All right, so here we have some deck lists. I would say, maybe the most high roll version of the Nico builds is the bounce list where you can use the spells multiple times, right? And some of the Nico spells are really strong, so if you can get those really good hits, and also you can play Nico in multiple turns, right? So there's a lot of flexibility. I think that's like the real core of Nico decks being good, or the Nico in a Nico deck being good, is if it can be played on multiple turns. Like you can afford to wait and still do other things. This one you can absolutely can't, and you can use them multiple times, right? So definitely bounce, very very powerful, very strong. So I think this is a pretty good valuable. Also Forge Nico, right? The double the stats of the Nico, you turn into a 1/8. Right, and you could do that again, right? Well, you can't, right? Because you can't get the same spell twice, but you can get a 1/8 with the Forge, and that's pretty good. Like if you get the high roll like Bass into Nico, Forge Nico, right? Like 110, like yeah, okay, right? Like that's maybe too much, but it's there. So I just wanted to have this in there. Bounce Nico seems very fine, very strong. Bounce in itself is already doing pretty okay with Elsa, so there's definitely a lot of synergies there that you can pay attention to. Next up, we have Destroy. I would say this is the most popular version of Nico builds right now, just putting it in a Destroy package. And I think that's perfectly fine. Destroy just has a lot of synergies in there already, where destroying for 2 cards is really, really strong. Getting the copy of a card is also really, really strong. Getting the stat gains in some circumstances is also really powerful. Like giving X23 stats is like guaranteed, things like that. So there's definitely some power hidden here. There's the Death, right, which some people might not like. They might want to play like Armin Zola instead of Death or anything like that, since people are still running Mobius. But I just think Death has that high roll potential, and you're not going to be seeing Mobius every game. And even if you don't, you can't play, like it's fine. Death can still do well without it. So I like the Death in this particular version, though you can definitely take it out if you just don't like it. So Destroy, very common Nico build, and seems to be performing decently well. Next up, we have Thanos. I think Thanos was the most theory-crafted version of the deck, where you played with Thanos. The stones are very easy targets for the Nico, and that has been the case in play, where the stones being targeted is very nice, very safe. You get a lot of value there, and you also get, if you can manipulate the draw 2, the draw 2 is just very, very strong, and I think that's really what you're hoping for. Even with like the Dino getting the draw 2 effect, like in the game, is like really nice, makes it really strong. And you just have a plethora of options to play with this deck. So definitely a fun, strong deck that makes a lot of sense here. A lot of people like Thanos, and Thanos having a resurgence is nice, since it did get nerfed, right? The Soul Stone being nerfed, but it seems to be coming back into the meta a little bit more, so it's cool to see. Also, me is like, maybe the Thanos nerf was justified, right? If it's still seeing a lot of play. Next up, we have Loki. I think Loki is still really strong. I am pretty sure I want Loki as a 3/3. Honestly, I'm pretty sure I want Loki as a 3/3. Like we could turn Collector back into a 2/1 or whatever, but Loki itself is like so good stats for what it does. Like it's crazy to me. So, but yeah, you can still play Loki. Still works here. I would say it's somewhat awkward in this deck, honestly, in my opinion. Like Nico isn't as flexible as in the other decks we've showcased, but it's still something you can do. And it's just a good card if you don't really care too much about what it actually gives you. So here you don't mind too much what it gives you as long as it makes sense. And being able to draw 2 in a Loki deck is also very, very strong. So something you could definitely play around with. And then finally, I do have the Phoenix Force version, or a Phoenix Force version. This isn't necessarily the only Phoenix Force version. I would say for Phoenix Force decks, they're very easy to be doing too much, right? Where you have so many options, but they're not consistent options, right? So in this particular version, I decided to kind of move away from all of the options, right? There's no there's no Red Skull in this as well, things like that, and we just have just a lot of good things to do. I think the Nimrod version is like one of the more powerful things to do with Phoenix Force and Shuri. So that is something I definitely want in there. And then the multiple man Phoenix Force moving everything is just like very, very strong. Same thing with Human Torch. It's just very, very strong. So just want to add those options. And then we have Heimdall. Just cause it works here. I mean, that's all I have to say. It works here. So that's my particular list I would be considering if I were to play a Phoenix Force version of the deck. So those are essentially the list I do have for Nico. Definitely think Nico is a lot better than I was expecting. So pretty good card, pretty good deck list. Definitely a card I think could see more flexibility in the future, where people build more, people have more ideas, people understand what makes it busted. So I do think this is a card that gets stronger as you learn the card. So definitely a strong one, a powerful card. It's not necessarily cord right now, but I could see it like jumping up as more decks for Nico are being built. So if you want to get this card, I think that's fine. But if you also want to skip the card, I also think that's fine. This isn't something you have to get. So that's my thoughts on the card. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully this will be fixed by next video. It's very frustrating, actually. I did not know how important the stand was. But yeah, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful day.
EducatedCollins snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skill